Light the fire, feel the beat. Gday Gridiron can't be beat. Nick your knee and bring the heat. Grabs the MVP elite. From the outback through the field, we got tackles hard as steel. Catch the passes, make it real. Gridiron warriors never kneel. Gday Gridiron, down under and beyond. Gday Gridiron, yeah, the podcast come on strong.
G'day Aussie Gridiron fans, and welcome to the G'day Gridiron podcast, brought to you by the Aussie Gridiron Network. We are at the end of week 18 and the end of the regular season for the 2024 season, which means we are on pretty much our last reactions show for the season. I guess it would be our last reaction show. Isaac and I are back just to chat about some things that happened during week 18 and how that washes out in terms of the league as a whole, maybe a little bit on what's just sort of happened this year. And of course, we'll be talking about the last few eliminated teams before we go into the playoff schedule for 2024-25. January football's upon us, mate. We're finally there.
What a time of year. Oh, bring it on. Let's go.
Bring it on. Absolutely bring it on. Yeah, this is the fun time of year. Obviously, it's like just about any sport, really, isn't it? When you get down to the finals, it's when all the most exciting football gets played. The most exciting, games get played.
That's right. And teams actually care about what happens with the outcome of these games.
Yeah, everything's do or die, really, isn't it? Win and in.
That's it. The intensity ramps up. The verbals get better. It's beautiful.
Yeah, and of course, because every game has to result in a winner, it's sort of everyone is pushing right through to the end. There's none of this sort of garbage time during fourth quarter stuff. It's just really pushing.
It's no resting players. Rams, Chiefs.
Yeah. Yeah, the good old Chiefs second team that played this week, the B team.
Thanks a lot.
used to be like way back in the really good days of the summer of cricket when we had like the one dayers and we'd have the Australia A team.
A. Yep.
Yeah, and like sometimes the Australia A team was doing better than the Australia team, and then they had to suddenly disappear onto some kind of weird, like, oh, these guys have got to go play over another continent now.
That's it. I remember it used to be in the backyard cricket, you'd choose a team and it'd be mostly Australia A or Australia players in your team.
Yeah.
Perfect.
Yeah. Well, they suddenly just decide that they were going to just try some random middle order batsman from a New South Wales team just to see how we went. Oh, we're just going to give him a shot in the Australia A team. But the reality is they were going too well, and you didn't want to always end up with an Australia v Australia A final. Could you imagine a Chiefs v Chiefs A team?
I couldn't, because the Broncos beat the Chiefs to B team 38-0. Imagine what Mahomes would do to them.
I can't. Yeah, they absolutely destroyed that team, the Broncos. And I know that you were playing a lot of backups, but if your backups are that bad that the Broncos can beat you 38-0, like lay an absolute egg, is what the Chiefs did. I don't know. Your team's not really that. In my head, your team's not that complete.
No.
Complete rounded teams that we know go through to the Super Bowl are ones that have backups that can just step in at a moment's notice and nothing changes.
Look at the Lions' defense. That's stepped in.
I know.
It's done its job.
I know, and that's what I just can't see that And I've been rooting for the Chiefs really since the start of the season. I said that they were the ones that were going to finally do this historic three-peat, because they look like you've got Mahomes. The main two things, you've got Mahomes and you've got Big Red. they're just masterminds together, and it's very hard to beat them from that point. And then you throw in like Steve Spagnuolo and everything that he does with that defense, and Chris Jones. Yeah, I mean, Spags took just random defensive players from around the league and made them a unit that was a force last season. And so from the beginning of the season, I said, and I'm on our preview podcast way early in the season, way back in March and April, saying that I thought that the Chiefs were going to go. I mean, I picked them to be 16-0, which obviously was never going to happen, but it was just a laugh. But it was me proving a point that I thought that they could get all the way and be the first team to do the three-peat. But I look at just the way that they got absolutely handed against the Broncos, who were definitely, like, the Broncos were playing for something, and they were playing hard for something. And I guess the thing's been out there that the Chiefs probably let them win. I do that in inverted commas, obviously, so that they didn't have to come up against the Bengals in any of the playoffs. But
that was my conspiracy.
Yeah, but I don't know. The Broncos still, it's not like they backed off. It's not like they let them win that much either, though. Bo Nix still threw for like over 300 yards and was nearly perfect.
Yeah, I still think there was a bit of that. They don't. Who would want to see the Bengals in the playoffs?
It's a bit of. I can get that maybe there might have been a bit of that. Like, let's play these guys; they'll beat us for sure. Like, let's throw in some backups, and then the Broncos should beat us with their first teamers. Like, that's obvious. That should happen. But
the Chiefs didn't even try and make it close.
Carson Wentz is no slouch, and he's thrown for like. Well, they only had him throw 17 times to start with. The numbers are ridiculous. It's off the charts. And every time I look at it, I look at it and go, what happened? Because, I mean, Wentz was sacked 4 times. That happens with Carson Wentz. That's what you take with Carson Wentz. They've only had him throw for 17 attempts, but they've only had 11 rushing carries as well.
Yeah, okay.
So, like, where was all the, like, what? Like, I just don't understand where the plays went. That's what blew my mind.
Well, they didn't play anything.
No.
It just let the Broncos have the ball. I mean, Carson Steele's playing your running back, so
yeah, Carson Steele. What a name.
That's no fun.
No.
So yeah.
So it blew my mind a bit. I was just, if this is what your backups are playing like, they can't even score a point. That's the other part. Like, you can't even get in a position to even kick some field goals.
Yep.
To get some points on the board, then I just fear what that's going to look like going down the stretch.
So they had 7 receivers in that game.
Yep.
Get receiving targets, and the highest one was 2.
2.
So it's not. It's not good.
I mean, we're talking like Nico Ramigo and Peyton Hendershot. Like, who are these dudes? I mean, their numbers are 81 and 88 in their receivers. So, at least one of those is a tight end.
Yep.
But, yeah, they're not big numbers.
No.
Yeah, I don't understand it, mate. It makes no sense to me why they went that way. Or just makes no sense why they couldn't score points. That's the thing it blows my mind. So,
because they had the receivers you just read out.
Yeah, because of that. I know that. I understand that. You talked about it with the Lions. Vikings fail to deliver in that big moment, mate, in Sunday Night Football, the last game of the regular season. After a 9-game winning streak, my Vikings, their biggest franchise. The biggest winning streak in franchise history. The Vikings, I mean, they were due for a loss, but unfortunately, it's just come at the worst time in sort of the worst game possible when you can get that loss.
Yeah, but what a hell of a season! Like, let's not take away anything from their season so far. Like, no one at the start of the season would have looked at the Vikings and said they're going 14-2 or whatever.
14-3, yeah.
14-3. That you would have got laughed off the island. My fear now is we talked about Darnold's contract and if he's going to get extended, how much money he's going to get, etc. When he's playing well, but then he has a game like that probably brings it back down a bit, if that makes sense. So the offers won't be there as much. They see that as in a big game that so his stats were he threw for 18 of 41 for 166 yards and got sacked twice. So that's not a good game. He didn't throw any interceptions, so he took care of the ball. But, yeah, not a good game in the biggest game of the year. And my fear last week was that if the Vikings lose, there's potential that they've got a seasoned Rams team that they're coming up against that could potentially be worrisome for them.
Yeah, I would have to be very worried about that as well. The Rams are, and it's not just the players themselves. It's obviously the coaching is the big worry. You know, you're coming up against the master of these schemes, and he knows exactly what you're going to do on offense and what you're going to try and do on offense. So it's sort of, I guess it's all up to Brian Flores really to show that he can do that and that he can combat the Sean McVay offensive style and combat the master against that and figure out how to dial out, I guess, Cooper Kupp and Puka Nacua and force them to go to other guys who would be a little more predictable.
Yeah, well, they're good against the run. I'm not sure they're so good against the pass, which is kind of what the Rams rely on with Cooper Kupp and Puka. So it'll be an interesting matchup there. They've definitely got the defense to do it. So we'll see. Interesting game. I think it's Tuesday our time. So we'll see how we go.
Yeah, well, I know we get the final game of the playoff, the wildcard round as well, mate. So I don't know what this is with this particular matchups right now in the Vikings and throwing them in these. I mean, they're going to be in Ireland games regardless. It's the playoffs, but just this final game, like Tuesday night, Monday night football stuff. Like, what are we doing? Anyway, we got to be able to win it eventually.
Yeah. So what are your thoughts on the game from
the weekend?
Yeah.
Look, I think the red zone issues were probably the biggest undoing for the Vikings. Failing to score on, I think it was at least 4 drives where they'd made a big play to get inside the 10. There was one where Cam Akers did a storming run in the second half, and the score was at a pretty respectable level at that point. Like, it was very much within reach for the Vikings. And Cam Akers made his breakthrough through a huge hole, big cut, and he's not the quickest bloke, and he still managed to get through. Got chased down by the DBs, and then I think that put us just inside the 10. I think it went all the way down to the 7-yard, and then basically went 3 and out from that point. In the red zone, failed to move forward, failed to even get the ball across the line, and there were just some throws. There were some throws Darnold made, which he has made all season. Same throws, similar throws, similar plays that he's just made basically in his sleep all season. And I don't know, as a Vikings fan and a logical Vikings fan, I look at it and sort of think it was essentially player football, and it was where the pressure's dialed up and the speed's dialed up and the just the difficulty in the moment is all dialed up, and it was not him failing in to live up to that expectation. I think he was just too pumped up. It's because a lot of those throws were over the top of receivers, too fast, missing a mark, and it was a lot of times there where he was having to anticipate because of the rush. An amazing defensive scheme from the Lions as well. Alex Anzalone, man, he's got a steel plate in his hand, and the guy he comes back out like in a big moment and starts destroying quarterbacks. But because of that, and they were in his face so quickly, he was having to anticipate where a receiver would be or what their movement was going to be and throw it ahead of them to try and get them there. And you've got the best receiver in all of football, but even to a point when Jefferson is double teamed and you're putting it in front of him, not even he's going to be able to anticipate where you're thinking you're going to have to put the ball for him to anticipate. everyone having to be on that same link. And I just think probably just too pumped up, just not slowing it down, not taking a breath. Yeah. And that comes back to a bit in coaching, but I could see O'Connell getting pretty frustrated on the sideline because he was, I guess, dialing up plays that we've made all season, and they just weren't coming off.
Yeah, okay.
So I don't think it's a failure yes, it's a failure in terms of we lost the game. We're lucky enough that we lost the game. We're still a 5 seed.
Yes.
But, and previous games this season, in the other couple of games this season where we've lost a game and we've been shown up, because those other 2 times we lost, we were shown up. We've come out the next week and it's been like a wake-up call, and we've come out with a hammer the next week. And that's probably the only saving grace, is that they have that ability in them to self-reflect and go, that was all terrible and we don't want that feeling again. So Let's go. So,
yep, fair enough.
Anyway, that's how I think it is. We'll do a lot of it. You and I, obviously, will probably talk over everybody in previews this week.
Unfortunately, I'm not there, so I'll.
Oh, you're not actually. You're not, are you?
Nah.
It's me anyway. I did a random ass draw to go who's going to do the game preview, and of course my name, because I just went from first game through to last game for the weekend, and of course my name came out last, so I ended up having to preview Rams Vikings when I was like, I really don't want to have to set up the preview for this game, but no, it is going to be me. So I'll come up with something half decent.
Perfect.
Just to see if I can do us proud. Well, we'll talk about it the following week anyway, which will be hilarious when you and I talk about which one of us lost.
I might not even show up.
maybe not, mate. Let's go to, I guess these next two things sort of go together. Why don't we do eliminated? Let's go through some eliminated teams, and then we'll have a bit of a talk about Black Monday, the dreaded time when coaches and GMs and other staff are sort of shown the door of various franchises. So let's, I guess for the final time, well, it's not really the final time. We'd probably still do a bit of eliminated. Maybe we'll see if we can shoehorn that into the playoff shows as we go along. We'll figure out a way to do that in the next couple of weeks. But for the final time in the regular season, as we come up to playoffs, of course, we have been talking about teams that were eliminated from playoff contention and what their fans can look forward to going into the 2025 season, despite the fact that they were just eliminated from playoffs. So let's go with first up, the biggest one of the weekend, Cincinnati Bengals. Went hard early on Sunday Australian time, played against the Steelers, won a game 19-17 against the Steelers, which they should have won a lot easier than they did. But once again, it was a pretty decent offensive showing, not as good as they could have done, and that's what I mean by they should have won this a lot easier than they did. But I think we all knew that the Bengals coming up against a Steelers defense, it was always going to be a hard time. And it was just the Steelers, I guess the Steelers offense failing to fire, which was one of the only reasons that the Bengals were even in this. They won that game 19-17. Then they had to sit back and hope and pray that the Miami Dolphins and the Broncos lost their respective games. The Broncos, of course, did win against the Chiefs, as we talked about a little bit earlier, 38-0. So that put end to that entire scenario and just absolutely closed the door on the Cincinnati Bengals season. And it meant that they are officially
eliminated.
What do we got to look forward to for Bengals fans going into 2025, mate? I can think of a few things.
Yeah, a new defensive coordinator. Like, they need to change that defense. Do something. That defense, one of the worst in the league. The offense just had to score too many points, and it was just too much after a while. And And their other positive would be the emergence of Chase Brown. You know what you're going to get out of Joe Burrow, Jamar Chase, and T. Higgins and the likes. But the running game was always a question coming in. You had Zach Moss there at the start of the season, but Chase Brown just took over, and he's been phenomenal. So that's another positive going into next year.
Yeah, I suppose because obviously they found Joe Mixon quite a few years ago, and then he really dropped off. Really just dropped off a cliff last season before they moved him on. So just finding Chase Brown now and just having that emergency has been a pretty good thing for him.
Yeah, 100%.
He's really come on well this season. Ended up with just under 1,000 yards. Probably would have gone over. Definitely would have gone over that 1,000-yard mark if
started the season.
Yeah, well, start of the season plus the injury now as well.
Yep.
Yeah, I think if he played in this game, he would have gone over it, which I think he would have played in this game 100% if they could have. But he ended up with 229 carries, 990 yards, 7 TDs.
Wow.
Average of 4.3 per carry, which is pretty good.
That's a very good per carry yardage. I'm very sad to see the Bengals eliminated. I had them going to the Super Bowl at the start of the season. I thought they were in for a really good year. But it just wasn't meant to be. Yeah,
it is upsetting seeing them. I really wanted to see them in the playoffs a bit more. I'm not 100% sold on the Broncos in the playoffs. I'll yet to be. Yeah, I'm happy to be proven wrong that they can actually be there. But I just think that having the Bengals there would have been a little bit more exciting for the league. Pretty much.
I think so as well. Like as I said last week on both shows, like Joe Burrow versus Josh Allen, like what an advertisement for the NFL just to put them two up on a poster. And I mean, the Broncos could show up and show out, but we'll see how we go. Yep.
All right. Next up, the Miami Dolphins. We're never going to make the playoffs, especially when you lose 32-20 to one of the worst teams in football, who already had absolutely nothing to play for, and they just go out and just lay a massive egg against the New York Jets. Snoop Huntley started this game at quarterback instead of Tua. Devon A-Chain, once again, 121 yards in this game. But unbelievable. Jonnu Smith just ended up as wide receiver 1 at one point. They sort of dialed Tyreek Hill out of this offense completely in the latter half of the year. He just disappeared. Even when Tua came back, he still disappeared.
But sounds like off the team.
Off the team as well. You've dialed him off the team. But I don't know. Rodgers and co seem to just want it more for some reason.
Rodgers' retirement game.
The Rodgers retirement game. And, of course, Aaron Rodgers throwing his 500th career touchdown in this game. All kinds of things happening. But that loss meant that the Miami Dolphins officially
eliminated.
One of those teams that we thought should have happened weeks ago, but it just didn't. Positives, mate. Positives for the Dolphins. There has to be some positives for the Dolphins fans.
There is. And once again, they go into an off-season wanting to get healthy. That seems to be the trend for the Miami Dolphins. They just need to get healthy, and Tua needs to stay healthy. So they need to look at bolstering that offensive line to keep him protected. And another thing, hopefully they get some assets back when Tyreek Hill gets traded, or he has to get traded to get assets back. But as he said in the post-match interview, he's gone. He does not want to be there. So, and Mike McDaniels was very sheepish in the way he answered the questions in the post-game interview as well about why Tyreek didn't get on the field in the second half.
Yeah, he'll be gone. I think he'll force them into a trade of some kind. So it'll be interesting to see what they get. Considering other teams will also know that that they need to, he's going to force their hand.
Yeah,
So-
they don't have to give up much to get him because he's going to force their way out.
Yeah, so he's going to force a way out. So it's unfortunate part, but yeah, hopefully they'll get some good assets. They'll be able to find someone decent, be it free agency or through a draft to, just replace Tyreek. Still got Jalen Waddle though.
Yes, that's right. Just a quick one for you, Ian. Just off the top,
Go.
where do you reckon he ends up?
Tyreek Hill. Ooh.
Yep.
Considering he wants to be at a contender, that is probably one of the hardest questions to answer. Is where does he fit amongst the contenders? Like if you look at the teams that we've now got going forward into the playoffs this season.
Yep.
Look at those teams and tell me where he could fit on one of those teams where he would actually be a contender.
Bills.
The Bills would probably be the obvious one, wouldn't it? I probably should have thought of that.
Oh,
It would be Bills.
as
You know what?
soon as
It'd be Bills or it'd be Packers.
Yeah, as soon as I heard that he wants out, imagine him going to the Bills and Josh Allen's arm and Tyreek just going downfield and Josh Allen just laying it on a dime for him.
Because the Eagles already got receivers. They got quality receivers. The Bucks have got quality receivers. Commanders do, 100%.
Yep.
I can see the Broncos being around that playoff point, but I think they're still a few years off being actual contenders for a Super Bowl. The Steelers still just don't know why they're there. They're some kind of mystery this season. We always knew that Tomlin was going to get over 500 because the deal that he scribed with the devil tells him he has to. But the fact that they're 10-7 is just astonishing, and their record early on. Those 10 wins came early. Texans have got receivers, even though that they've just got to get healthy.
Yep.
So they've got some. Chargers have got young guys. They're all about young guys.
Yep.
Ravens have already got younger guys, and they're starting to use their receivers. They don't use them that much. I think you're right, mate. Bills have got nobody, and the Packers still don't know who's wide receiver one on that team. So technically, they've got nobody.
Yeah. They got a committee.
They've got a committee, yeah. And I think those two teams, I don't know whether the Bills would be suspects on whether they could fit him in terms of cap and whether they had something to give up to give for Tyreek. They'd probably have to give whatever their first round pick would end up being. Because it's going to be way back end of the first round. They'd probably have to give that up.
So if you cut Cooper, Amari Cooper, and your first round pick, I reckon that'll be enough. And the Dolphins probably want to get out of this as well. I'll just say, give us what you got.
They're going to, I suppose. Yeah, because then you'd be going into a season with Khalil Shakir, Tyreek Hill, and Keon Coleman. That's not bad.
And I mean, and then the Dolphins can lean into Waddle as their one, have Cooper as their two.
Oh, they're going to lean into Waddle as their one. That's the big part for Dolphins fans. I think that Jalen Waddle finally becomes an actual wide receiver one. I think they'll look in draft, to be honest. I think they're going to be hot for wide receivers in the draft.
Yep.
All right, one more. And this was a long time coming. It really went right down to the wire in the NFC South. What a fight in one of the worst divisions in football just to get here. But you know what? They absolutely sealed it for themselves, the Atlanta Falcons, by when the Panthers came out and beat them 44-38 on the weekend, really just handing the whole division to Tampa Bay, despite the fact that Tampa Bay went out and won that game anyway. But what a shootout it ended up being between Bryce Young and Michael Penix Jr., though. Two great young quarterbacks just really going at it. But in the end, I'll play the drop. They're officially
eliminated.
And I'd just like to say on Thursday's show, I put out saying the Panthers will win and end the Falcons season. They were paying $4.25 to win. So if anyone got on it, thank you very much.
I had a feeling they'd win too. I had this feeling, the way that they were playing the end of the season, I kept saying it, that it's like they were showing teams that, oh no, we could beat you if we wanted to, and they've just gotten to a point. I think they've done a lot of like draft specific stuff. The GM and their scouts have really honed in on these are the things we want going forward. These are the guys in the draft we really love, and I don't think that they're any of the big talked about guys up the top. So I think that the Panthers got to a point where they sort of went, it doesn't matter if we win games, as long as we are floating around that top 10 somewhere, we're happier because we think we're going to pick up the guy that we want at the top, and we're going to get decent picks for the rest of the way. And, let's just go out and show people that we can win. And my God, what a ridiculous scoreline.
And Bryce Young is looking better and better every week since he's come back from that 2-week spell. He's come back and he's looking like an NFL quarterback.
Yeah. Yeah, weeks and weeks ago we said that he is one of those things to look forward to going the next season for those fans, for the Panthers fans. What do you reckon on the other side? Now, since we're talking about the Falcons, things to look forward to for the Falcons. There's a few things that they shouldn't look forward to, but what do you reckon they should look forward to?
So, judging by how Penix Jr. has gone, it looks like he's a bridge quarterback, possibly better. I don't know. I haven't got the sample size isn't big enough yet to. It'll be interesting to come back next year and see where he's at after a full off season of getting number 1 reps. See where they're at from there. And they're still in a weak division. So there's a potential that they're going to win the division again or win the division next year, like the weak division. You got Tampa Bay and that's about it.
Yep. I mean, they got some great players around them too. Bijan Robinson, for one.
Yep.
He's the obvious one.
Yep.
What a running back. They finally let him just off the leash this season and showed what he can actually do.
That's right. Young. They're young as well, now that Kirk Cousins isn't there. So their division, it might be a bit better next year. With the emergence of the Panthers, the Saints are going nowhere. But, so we'll see.
Yeah. I think the division will be a little bit better next year. But they still retain a few guys. They'll retain. I think they got another year of Drake London. They got another few years of Darnell Mooney, which is good for them.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. They
got
good wide receivers.
Good, yeah, and more experienced guys is probably the best way to put it. You've got some really experienced guys there who are going to just help them along, and help Penix along as well. You got Bijan's got a couple of years under his belt now as a running back. So he's going to come out even better, I think, next season. Probably going to start pushing for that rushing record. We might see that at the Falcons next season if they can get the shit together. But they've really got to do something about O-line, and it's pretty clear from this game as well. They need to do something about defense.
Defense, yeah. And they possibly need like a safe tight end, if that makes sense. So Kyle Pitts he's got to go. Like, it's not working in Atlanta. It's been 3 or 4 years. He's got to go. So they need a reliable tight end. Maybe call the Ravens and see who you can get out of Mark Andrews or Isaiah Likely. Just someone else. Yeah.
I think you're right. Tight end wise, it matters these days. You really need to have a decent tight end and a half decent backup. And Kyle Pitts is just underperforming and has done for several years in the league. Everyone always thought it was Arthur Smith that was holding him back, but it turns out like this year, even when you've got someone for him to throw to him, he still just hasn't done that well.
Yep.
And they just don't have names as backups either. There's no one really there as a depth. Otherwise, they probably would have been playing Kyle Pitts for a lot of it.
Oh, at the tight end position, you're saying?
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah.
Yeah. I just don't think that they've got names there, like Charlie Warner and Ross Dwelly. It's not like, I think if you look around other teams in the league with a star tight end, you probably vaguely know the names of their backups as well. So
You talking about Noah Gray again?
Oh, I wasn't going to talk about Noah Gray. Well, like everybody learnt the two backups in Minnesota because Hawkinson was out. So,
That's right.
You suddenly learnt who these guys were because they had to be there. But they were doing it by, you got two guys. And then all of a sudden, you've opened up a world where you can play 13 team a lot more. Like 13 personnel, way more. And 12 personnel as well. Which is what the Chiefs have been doing. They've been playing 12 personnel with Noah Gray on the field.
Yep.
And then that just opens that up. So I think you're right there. You've gone into the tight end hole for me. Thanks, mate.
No worries.
Righto. How about then? Let's move on to goes with those eliminated teams. The wrath of Black Monday loomed tall for many in the NFL after Week 18. The day, of course, Black Monday is the day when we see teams move on from head coaches, GMs, and other coaching staff. Last season, nearly a quarter of the franchises in the NFL had head coaching turnover. We've seen a few on the list of firings today in the NFL, and amongst those, Jags let go of Doug Peterson.
Yeah, I think a lot of people seen this coming from a long way out. The Jags haven't had a good season. This will be one of the jobs that people will go after, though. I think it'll be a highly coveted head coaching role with the Prince, Lawrence, and the emergence of Brian Thomas Jr. and Josh Allen on defense. Like, they've got a good roster there. So, some people will be looking to take that role on.
Yep. The Pats, surprisingly, let go of Gerard Mayo after just one season.
Yeah, so that one's a surprising one because I think I mentioned a couple of weeks ago that if you're a first year head coach, you generally get the benefit of the doubt. I mean, the only thing I can see happening is that they've got Mike Vrabel lined up, and I don't think it'll be too long before he's announced as the Patriots' next head coach.
No, I don't think so either. I think that Gerard Mayo hadn't done well, and I think they knew Vrabel was out there and likely to get probably poached into the college ranks, never to be seen again. Because they earned. I think most of the college head coaches earn essentially the same as a NFL head coach these days, and a lot of them pick up the gigs for 15 years plus. So they get a lot of security and a lot of other stuff around them that just helps their family for a long period of time. And I think that they knew, the Pats sort of definitely knew, Robert Kraft especially loves Mike Vrabel. He's so I think that they knew he was out there. This is the chance to get him. Probably one chance to give it a shot. And sorry, Gerard.
I think that's who they really wanted coming out of Belichick anyway. So last year, as much as you hear the talk of that Jared Mayo was Belichick's understudy and doing all that stuff, this is kind of a line in the sand to say the Patriots and Bill Belichick are no more. Like, that's it. If he was the next to come in, then that's it. No more. Vrabel will come in and do his stuff. And, he's got a lot of work to do with the Pats.
He does, but there's some stuff to build on there as well. And I think he'll hit the ground running with that.
100%. Drake May, amazing.
Drake May was getting better and better through the season too, which is a good thing considering when you're on a losing team, when you're a rookie quarterback on a team that is consistently losing all season, usually they go the Bryce Young direction. But you could see that he was actually getting better through this season.
Yep. So
he was picking up stuff and doing better. So that shows that there's a lot going on up top in terms of talent as well as just his arm. The Seahawks let go of their OC, Ryan Grubb. He is out of the Mike McDonald's coaching tree, class, whatever you want to call it, room.
Yeah, so I reckon this will be another job some OCs want out there. I mean, how could you not want to work with JSN and Kenneth Walker? Two good young players, and their defense has been really good, so they won't need to worry about scoring too many points because their defense is going to keep them in the game.
He's going to need an OC that's going to want to come in there and run a stable ship, really. Just
That's
stable and keep it stable and consistent. Steady as she goes, and then let Legion of Boom Part 2 eat.
That's right, and scheme up plays where Gino isn't throwing the ball deep too much and looking after the ball, and build it around Gino to make Gino look good, and your offense will go all right.
And we talked about the Bengals' defense, historically one of the worst in the league and the worst that as we've seen. A truly historic season for having the best offense and the worst defense in the one season. The Bengals let go of defensive coordinator Lou Anarumo.
Yeah, another job that will be sought after because if you look at it opposite to the Seahawks, your offense is going to score points. You just need to keep them out enough for your team to win. So don't let the offense will fire. Like, you just need to keep them to 2 touchdowns. Don't worry, Joe Burrow and Jamar Chase and T. Higgins, and they'll do the rest.
Yeah, and I think despite the fact that it went the wrong way for Lou Anarumo with the Bengals this season, I don't think he'll have a hard job finding a defensive coaching role elsewhere in the league. He's a really good defensive coach, and I think it more came down to the guys that he was left with, or the guys that they ended up with, trying to play his particular types of schemes, and especially against the offenses that they had to come up with, being one of the better teams in the league. So I don't think he'll have a hard time securing a role somewhere else next season.
Yeah. So with this one, I think then Zach Taylor will be safe.
I'd say so. I think this was sort of like the scapegoat, essentially.
Yep.
Yeah, so he'll be safe for next season at least, and they'll really have to show. If they show the same thing again, it's going to be interesting to see which way they go. I would expect, though, that whoever comes in at DC is probably going to end up with like a year or two, or not more than a year, so 2 or 3 years to really prove that they can turn it around, turn the defense around, and do something worthwhile.
Yeah, I think if the Bengals start next season the way they started this season, Zach Taylor will be gone within 5 weeks.
Yeah, they can't start. They can't have that early season just shit start again, can they?
Well, they've been notorious for it when Zach Taylor's there. Like, what are you doing in the off season? These guys aren't ready to go from week 1.
Yeah, they need to come out really running early on.
Yep.
Yeah, so they're the coaching. I'm sure there's going to be more people that they're going to lose some jobs as other guys get picked up. There'll be some more news as we go through the coming weeks and into the off season on where some of these head coaching roles head up. Of course, the Jets have decided to request interviews with probably the entirety of the league and half the guys that got booted out of the league last season at this point. So they're still trying to find a head coach, and that'll of course come with other staff. I've heard. Well,
actually, I've got some news on that. Actually, I'm flying over to New York tomorrow to interview for the head coaching role of the New York Jets.
Oh, it doesn't surprise me, mate. I mean, they're reaching out that far at the moment to just to check up on people. I assume Brad's going to Brad will be in there as well. Everybody. I've heard a few whispers around that, though. There've been some interesting thought processes on why, because a lot of people were laughing about the fact that they interviewed guys like Rex Ryan already for that head coaching role.
Yep.
But some of the thought process has been that they've probably been, because a lot of the older guys that they've been that they've interviewed or had chats to at the start already have been older defensive guys. So some of the thought process has been that they've gone out and sort of touched base and had some chats with some older guys around like defensive positions, probably a defensive coordinator, because they are already thinking of hiring a younger first-time offensive head coach. So they're going to try and, they're going to try and sort of force the DC and HC, like offensive head coach pairing, rather than letting the head coach choose their defensive coordinator, just so that they've got some stability, I think, and then obviously helping a first-time head coach sort of find their feet, as it would be in that kind of murky world of like where you've got all of the pressure and the whole team to deal with. Yeah. So that was an interesting thing that I heard during the week, and I thought that's actually pretty logical that you would go out and talk to guys like Rex Ryan and that about maybe a DC role to guide and mentor a first-year head coach.
Yeah. And that head coach will be Aaron Rodgers.
Yeah, most likely. If they keep him, he may as well be.
Yeah.
But I mean, they're talking. They want to talk to Ben Johnson and the likes there as well. But I don't think that's going to be a job that someone like Ben Johnson is going to want to take.
Not at all.
No. But I mean, they've also requested. Oh man, there was a list of at least 8 different people that they've interviewing for their GM role as well. Like their search is extensive. They've got such a huge list. So, but there's quite a few there. Some really interesting roles. We'll probably talk about that at some point with the boys on who we think should be where and what the roles are if they don't get snapped up. That might be post Super Bowl chat, depending on where we go with coaching wise and coaching searches over the next few weeks. But I'll make sure you just keep tuned, and any news we'll drop it in amongst our next section of shows, which of course this finishes up. The Week 18 stuff will finish up the regular season Gday Gridiron shows. And from here, we go into the AGN playoff series. So something that we've done for the last few years with all of the boys from the AGN. We're all sort of joining in on podcast, one big podcast or 2 big podcasts, where we will preview. We'll do what we do here. We'll preview every single game and talk about games, talk about some bets, real life stuff, and talk about these games, these very, very important playoff games. And then we'll do a bit of a fun fantasy show, as we do with some of the fantasy boys, where Maddie and Taylor have come up with some fun fantasy-related games around the playoffs, which will be insane with 6 or 7 people on a podcast where we do a draft for players. So you're missing out this week, bud.
Oh, I am. I'm thinking of actually tuning in at work and just sitting back and listening.
Oh, mate, we tossed around the idea of maybe doing it live too. That would have been interesting. We might see if we can figure that out for coming weeks as well. Maybe that might be a possibility. So keep an eye out for that one. If you're listening out there, we may end up trying to do a live podcast with the insanity that is the Aussie Gridiron Network. And some of you have... Matty's shows look polished on the outside. He is amazing in his production work, and big props to Matty for many years of the Aussie NFL Fantasy Show. But when you... knowing from the inside how much we record for him to get to that finished product, there is a lot that is editing flaws. It's just it's insanity, and just projecting all of us into a live podcast scenario, it could be very, very good, or it could be very, very bad. So anyway, thanks for joining us. Not sure whether we do any reaction shows the rest of the way through. We'll sort of see how we pan out. Isaac and I might have a chat about that anyway, see if we do some or not. Yep. Do.
We've got to do one next week, sure.
Yeah, I know. We might have to, just because we've got 6 games. So you will hear from us during the week. You'll hear a G'day Gridiron-esque show. So we'll have a preview show with all 6 wildcard game previews, and we're going to compile a AGN multi, so a one betting line from everybody that's on the podcast into one multi. So listen to that for that, for if you want to get your bets on and hear what we've sort of picked out as probably one of the more fun or better lines. And then you'll obviously hear a fantasy show too, which will be a lot of fun. So listen along to that. You'll find all the links to socials at Linktree/Aussie Gridiron Network. Like and follow there, and just keep an ear out or an eye out and see what we get up to. And apart from that, on behalf of myself and Isaac, thank you very much for joining us, and we'll see you sometime in the playoffs. See ya.
The Gday Gridiron podcast is brought to you by the Aussie Gridiron Network, a network of Australian podcasts bringing the fun and a little bit of the Aussie larrikin to the NFL and fantasy football. Check out our other amazing productions. Australia's #1 fantasy football podcast, the Aussie NFL Fantasy Show. Everything about the local game at Aussie Gridiron today. Manjot's Pastry Press on Instagram and YouTube, and Australia's very own Dynasty podcast, No Huddle Dynasty. Find links to everything at Linktree/Aussie Gridiron Network.